Welcome back to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. I say welcome back because this is Best of Both Worlds Part 2. Yeah, season opener. The end of the cliffhanger. Best of Both Worlds Part 2. Speaking of Part 2, if you want more of this, more Star Trek talk, become a Patreon donor. Patreon.com/IBD. Not only do you get more of us, you get more of the It's All Been on Radio Hour experience. Everything to offer at IBDpresents.com, but more because you're going to patreon.com/IBD. Doesn't take much per month. Like I said, 6 cents a day, you're getting extra content, baby. Just like extra content here, Best of Both Worlds, Part 2 on It's All Been Trekked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your regular hosts are back for TNG Season 4.
Wow. This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. Yeah, we get halfway through the season. We're halfway done with Next Gen. We're here to talk Best of Both Worlds Part 2, First Impressions.
In light of a new season, I'm going to let Keith go with his first impression.
Oh, I had something ready too. That completely threw me. Wait, what was I was going to say? I was excited about the idea of getting back on track with things, but I don't know, something just wasn't clicking for me for these first couple of episodes. And it's not like they were horrible or anything. It's just I think I might have been spoiled by having recently started watching Star Trek Discovery. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But something wasn't, I don't know. It's hard to get back in the mindset. But I'm still excited to, as I said, to make more progress through the marathon. What's the word I'm looking for?
The rest of our lives.
Yes.
The oeuvre.
Oeuvre. I enjoyed it a lot. I almost feel like all the setup was more exciting for whatever reason, but I thought the second half does pay off, and it does feel like, and I feel like I've read this before too, driving home the point that I read, just like this is kind of a turning point, I guess, for lack of a better term. I mean, it just feels like the series is different now. And season 3, we discussed at length how good that was. And so really, I guess, really it was building to this. Don't know where I put it in my all-time Trek list, because again, I'm obviously, as you guys know, I'm heavily biased, but it's just a solid 2 hours. It's that extra part we've wanted in a lot of episodes where it's like, man, if they expanded this out, some of the times if they expanded those episodes out, it might have been a really good episode. Other times it's like, man, I wanted another half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever. So yeah, I thought it delivered on what it had to. And we'll get into more stuff, more details later.
Yeah, I like this episode. I'm with you, though, that I don't think it was as good as the first half. And I have some gripes about it. I guess I don't think I've ever watched it isolated before, especially not after a month or whatever break we took. And you're right. Something does feel a little different. But I will say, to spoil just a little bit, I dug the heck out of the second episode that we're going to talk about next week, Family. Yeah. So it was like, just took me a minute to get back into it, maybe. Yeah, Keith might be right. I've watched plenty of recent Star Trek, but yeah, I like it. Though. It's not a bad episode. It was Star Trek's first attempt at a two-parter, really. I mean, Encounter at Farpoint was a 2-hour pilot, but this was the first time they tried to do the cliffhanger and the resolution. And yeah, I think overall it was pretty good. Deserves to be remembered, but I think there'll probably be some better two-parters in Trek's future.
It's possible, I guess. Maybe that was it for them. They needed to hang it up.
I'll just say The Way of the Warrior and leave that here.
Okay.
That two-parter. Deep Space Nine? Never mind. When Worf goes over to DS9? Never. Whatever. We'll get to that in a couple of years.
God, you're probably not exaggerating.
I mean, it'll be more than 2 years because that's the season 4 opener of DS9 when Worf joins the crew. But yeah, this episode started with 2 solid minutes of Previously On, which felt like extreme overkill. Even though you had a 3-month break, it was almost like retelling the entire episode, even the details that you don't necessarily need to know. And maybe that part of that was just shows didn't do these cliffhanger things that often, and they didn't know what to do. But it was too much.
Are we doing a Previously On It's All Been Trekked Before?
Yes. Previously on It's All Been Trekked Before. I'm not editing clips from last season.
No, I don't blame you.
I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention, which is a shocker, of course. It didn't feel like too much to me at the time, but of course I wasn't really focused on it. I think I was distracted by one of my only 2 notes that I even wrote for this episode, which was the recap failed to include the full stinger from the end of the cliffhanger. It hit the fire. There was just like a little da da da. No, it needed to be the dun, 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 just for another. But
yeah, I think that's part of my problem with it is we ended on fire, like such a action moment with them, as Keith said, the stinger music. And then we get back and it takes a while to fire. Like they're still hearing the stinger in their head, but it's just not playing on the screen. And then it's so anticlimactic because it's just like nothing happens. The board keeps fine. We're good. Our plan totally failed.
Yeah.
That may have been like already starting it a little bit lackluster for me.
That's a good point.
Then Picard comes on the screen and he doesn't say resistance is futile as you would expect. Right. He says your resistance is hopeless, number one.
I was like, wait a minute. Have I been lied to all these years? I thought resistance was futile.
Wait a minute. So has that catchphrase not happened yet? I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it happened in part 1.
Yeah. He did.
I think it was meant to address Riker more directly. And I admit it is a little bit jarring to hear him call him number 1. So there's an effect there. I
did like the shot. I can't remember. It was like a crossing shot where you saw everyone, but everyone's emotional reaction the more Locutus talked. I did like that. And again, maybe that gets to kind of the different tenor of this episode to a certain extent.
Yeah. The Enterprise is down for 8 to 12 hours after their failed attempt, which, man, that's got to be the longest 8 to 12 hours of their lives. Yeah. I'm not kidding. I mean, if you try to put yourself in their mindset of we just were willing to murder our captain and throw everything we can at this, and we failed utterly, and now we have to sit here and we can't even join the fight. Mm-hmm. That's so rough.
And then when they see the wreckage.
Oh, my God. I mean, I will say with the wreckage, the budget constraints showed. There wasn't as much wreckage as I would have liked.
Yeah.
But what we're told, I can't remember if they say this explicitly in this episode or this is something that's talked about in later episodes, but like 39 starships were destroyed in that battle.
Yeah, and in my mind it's only 3, but that's only because he named 3. I was like, and then I'm like, no, I thought it was whole fleet. Yeah, and it was.
Yeah.
So,
but no Klingon ships, even though the Klingon ships were supposedly coming to help them.
Typical. Wolf 359, is that just like the asteroid there, or the planetoid, or the?
It's the sector.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the region of space they made their stand.
And is it just reference to this in later episodes?
Yes.
Okay. It also would be a great name for a new restaurant.
I mean, a restaurant that poisons people.
Well, I was going to say a restaurant that's devoted to the destruction that happened to Starfleet.
Right.
Well, it's more just the theme, it's like instead of having like the license plates on the wall, you have starship pieces or something.
Yeah. You get 39 replicas and you smash them into pieces, and then you serve fine dining. I don't know if
each table is named after one of the 39 starships. So I'm going to sit the Intrepid table tonight. And each one has their own special cocktail. I'm going to drink the Captain de Soto soda water or something.
This is. Jimmy just took this to Shark Tank all of a sudden. This could work.
I like this. I think originally I thought of fine dining only because Woofridge here in Ohio. It is in Ohio, in Columbus. But now I'm thinking it's not quite fine dining, but a hamburger is still $13 because you're paying for the decor, the ambiance.
Yeah,
and everyone's dressed in a Starfleet uniform.
All the servers.
Yeah.
Man, the dry cleaning bills. They're all the cheap knockoffs of the Star Trek uniform.
Right. Exactly.
Like Jack Crusher wears in the next episode. We'll talk about that next episode.
And then we get people who played the 4th security guard in certain episodes to come and do guest appearances.
Yep.
I think we got something here. But anyway, we'll talk about that off air.
One thing I think this first half of the episode did really well was make us think that there's a decentish chance that Picard is not continuing with the series. Mm-hmm. The whole Admiral's story where he basically eulogized Picard.
Yeah.
Talking about how he'd never betray, but obviously he didn't have a choice here. And then Riker getting the promotion to field captain, and Riker does a meeting where he's basically giving his acceptance speech to being captain. Everybody's calling him captain. It feels like the show's moving on without Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
For the first half.
I mean, I thought they we talked about, we know he's going to be around or whatever, but I thought they sell it great.
I'm not sure when this aired, we did know that. And that's the thing. I think at that point, we didn't have social media where everything was dissected a million times over.
Right.
And we didn't have the constant news reporting we have. I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty sure there was some doubt to that in viewers' minds.
What year was that?
This would have been
1990, I think.
91?
1990, sorry.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, there was like nothing you could, I mean, you would have had like magazines or maybe like some kinds of, I can't
carrier
think of the term.
pigeons.
No, I mean, they might have, I mean, there's dial-up back then, certainly. And I think there was, I mean, if you're like in college, you could have had access to like VAX and some other things. Maybe. Boards, but but they were list groups. I can't think of what you call them exactly. Mailing groups, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But even then, I don't think email was really accessible until like maybe a few years after that.
Yeah. Yeah, this was rough.
Yeah.
Riker's conversation with Shelby, I guess we were meant to think that he wasn't offering her the XO job, but it seemed to me right away he was offering her the XO job.
Yeah. I really like that scene. I know, obviously, I've said I like Shelby, but I thought that was a good scene.
I think Shelby, if we didn't have part 1, we only had part 2 Shelby, no one would ever dislike her. Like they went so far into making us hate her in part 1, but in part 2, they immediately about face and go so far into making you like her. Mm-hmm. I think part of why I liked her in part 1 was remembering the type of officer she is. And like I said, she's the first officer in the New Frontier book series, with the one series that's about a crew that was never on screen. Yeah. So I read a lot of books with her in them, and I've gotten to know her on that level. And I really like her as a character.
And that's tough. And that goes even more to the, hey, Picard might not be coming back, because it feels like they're making her more likable. I'm going to keep saying Picard now. No, I'm not. Making her a little more likable or whatever. Maybe she is going to be around. I guess either way, you might think she might be around. But as we know, she won't.
What did you think of Riker letting Data and Worf down gently about his XO choice?
It reminded me of The Godfather when Tom's out. You know, they send Fredo to Vegas, Bobby Duvall, and says, "You're not a wartime consigliere. You know, there's a time we're going to need you, but you're not a wartime consigliere." That's what I thought. That's kind of the way that's not exactly what he was saying, but he was just saying, now's not the time. This is the person we need right now.
I wrote down aces in their places, which I worked at a pizza shop through high school and college, and I made the schedule for a long time, and the owner said, you know, Mondays, Tuesdays, you can move people around so they can train and learn different things. But when the Friday night crunch comes down, aces in their places.
Yeah. I've never heard that expression before. I really like that, actually.
And whether Shelby was intended to be a permanent XO or not, in this moment, Worf and Data are very skilled at what they do, and he shouldn't mess with that. It was a wise leadership decision, in my opinion.
Stephen, have you heard that expression before?
No. Huh. Nah. And it is a good one. I thought you were going to say it was one of the pizzas you guys made. So I'm already hungry. Clearly, I am hungry, and I'm hungrier now.
Riker had 4 pips on his collar. He got the 4th captain pip. They wore for the rest of the episode.
Yep.
I did enjoy when he announced Shelby as his first officer that he said, "I've reluctantly chosen Shelby as my first officer."
So
part of that was kind of messing with her, but part of that was like, dude, you shouldn't shame her in front of the crew as you tell them they have to report to her now.
The second note that I actually had prepared before this was about that dynamic, and I think it was the payoff we really wanted from. Or that's I mean, that was my favorite aspect of it, as you were saying earlier. The payoff we wanted from the first or the previous episode, but it did feel a little jarring when you think about it. It was a very kind of rushed, sudden about face, and you know, I guess that would make sense in light of the tragedy that they probably experienced at that point. That would probably make them just kind of dump some cold water on them at that point.
Well, I think it also showed Riker's wisdom, because he makes the comparison of, you know, you remind me of myself, and maybe that's why I don't like you as much, or why we clash.
I loved all that. and it felt like, because like you said, it felt at first like, oh, where are we going here? And then eventually he turned it around, and him having a smile during these uncertain times was also very very good.
I will say what I've been reading the last month since we talked about Best of Both Worlds Part 1 is I read the first 2 Titan books. They released about 10 books with Captain Will Riker on the Titan post Next Gen movies. And so it really is a nice look at his command style, which we only glimpsed in Star Trek Picard. And it's an evolution over what we saw in this episode. But even having that in my mind, like knowing the type of captain he'll eventually become, was really nice in this moment, and probably had me reading a little more into it than was actually there.
So something else that just occurred to me while we were talking about that is that it is another indication of his reverence to Picard, following what he thought that he would do in that position, almost like what his last wishes would have been, to recognize Shelby's potential and make nice, so to speak, for lack of a better term. Even
though he was tossing out Picard's plans and orders. Because he chose to do the saucer separation.
Oh, that, yes.
Which was again, a wise move. He was a really good captain. It's hard to come out of this episode and think that he's going back to XO, even though that's exactly what happens.
Was that before or after Guinan's talk with him?
The separation was after. Yeah. But yeah, Guinan, seeing what I wrote down about that, was basically, it was more reinforcing that Picard is gone and not coming back.
Yeah.
She was...
She's always on the money, man.
I do love, though, that she came in and took Picard's chair instead of letting Riker sit in it behind the desk in his office. Well, because Riker can't bring himself to sit in the chair. And yes, I think part of her talk, I mean, that's part of, it goes with her talk of, you need to let him go. I'm letting him go. And she's sitting in his chair while she's saying it. Like Riker actually like makes a move to sit in the chair when she enters, and she beats him to it and sits in Picard's chair.
Did she confirm in a slight way that she and Picard slept together?
Definitely.
I don't know about that.
Beyond friendship, beyond family.
That's the vibe I got.
That could mean a lot of things, though.
I'll tell you what it means. I'll tell you what it means to me.
They slept together a lot.
I think it means there's some sort of life debt or something. But yeah.
I think it means we've been shipping the wrong couple with Crusher and Picard, and we need to be shipping Guinan and Picard.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Although we think Guinan and Riker...
they definitely. They're just friends with benefits. They're not lovers. Yeah. Picard and Guinan have an emotional connection.
I agree with you.
I enjoy her being the morale officer on the ship. I mean, she's just the bartender, and I think people take her for granted, including Riker, but Picard doesn't. And her coming in and asserting like, hey, I'm the number one advisor, and I'll be your number one advisor. Right now, she is basically staking her grounds in that moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I've said this before. I love her so much on here, and like I said, I did not appreciate it the first time around. The few times I saw her on this show, but she's so great. It's like, oh, now I get even more why people, in a way, consider Whoopi like an oracle. Like that's probably somebody you should talk to. And absolutely now, all the things she's done in her career and where
she should have been in. She should have been in more than one of the films, and I'm really glad they're bringing her back to Picard next season because we need more. Yeah. My favorite line she had in there was, "It would have been easier if he had died," and everything that goes with that. I liked that a lot.
Yeah. But the idea that this was believable, the idea that we could have bought that Picard wasn't coming back. I'm trying to remember. It feels like we've had a few eulogies before in the series already where they. It's like they can't possibly really have killed this person, right? And it just kind of, I think they're good at committing. Can you remember earlier fake outs in the series?
I mean, Tasha Yar was more than a fake out,
right? Well, they really committed to that one. But
in TOS, we definitely had a couple where either Shatner, Kirk disappeared, or amok time we kind of had a brief moment, and then.
Data blowing up in the shuttle.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yes.
I was thinking the Tholian web was when Kirk, he disappeared and whatever, but if it was a better episode, it would have, again, that's another one. If it was a better episode, it would have run more true. Amok time, the first time is definitely, gut punch isn't right, but you're like, holy mackerel, since we're thinking did that happen? And then, and it's all worth it for Spock's reaction. it felt like he was. Yeah, we should be excited when people come back. Well, no, I guess I get it, because in some cases it's like a great athlete and they come back and they're not what they were before, which makes sense. Age catches up with you. But
so you're saying you don't want Picard to come back because he doesn't come back in top-notch form?
I guess I'm agreeing with Keith, but it took me a while to get there to like.
Well, no, see, it's
some
like
people get mad about it.
Yeah, it's the emotional toll that it takes.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much investment in accepting that this is real, and it turns out not to be. And so it's almost like a waste of that moment that you committed to or that you participated in.
I can't imagine feeling that way, but I get your point.
I would feel more. I think I feel more about that, but I'm living by that mantra that Colleen's driven into me, which is these people do dangerous things. So there's a good chance they might almost die all the time. So it makes sense that you would get that invested. And then it turns out, oh, he survived. Although Spock would say, this happens all the time.
I mean, this is one of the many reasons I praise Discovery's 2-part opener. The fact that they were willing to kill Captain Georgiou, Michelle Yeoh.
Spoiler alert, audience.
People. Oh, it aired years ago now. Literally. We're through season 3 in real time. But the fact that they were willing to kill their captain at the end of the 2-hour premiere is huge. And to have an actress as big as Michelle Yeoh come in, you didn't expect them to kill her.
No.
So Riker, when he's on the bridge, as captain now with the 4 pips and everything, he does the Picard maneuver, the one where he tugs the uniform down when he stands up. Did you notice?
Yeah. I
didn't
note that, but you're right.
Yeah, I think he did that very purposeful. I think he's channeling Picard in that moment. Because honestly, in that moment, as his first experience of captain, I think he would probably think in his head, what would Picard do? He's the man I emulate. He's the man I look up to.
Yeah.
And
I later
tugging the uniform is just part of that mindset.
Sorry, I later noticed a make it so.
Yes.
But,
yeah, I think he was definitely channeling him. We see the ships destroyed, but they show the same shot both before and after the commercial of the ships destroyed. I don't know if you noticed. Yeah. I guess it's just the budget again. There's a pan, commercial break, same pan.
Yeah, definitely. Just to go back to Make It So, is that just a Picard thing or is that a Star? Okay.
No, every captain has their own catchphrase. Or what I don't think Kirk really did, but Picard's Make It So. Riker in the Titan books uses a jazz phrase. I can't remember what it is, but it's something jazzy.
Yeah.
Archer and Janeway have their own things. And they did a really fun episode of Discovery in season 3. And I won't tell you who the captain is in season 3, but captain of Discovery in season 3, who is a new captain, they spend a whole episode like suggesting different catchphrases for this captain to utter when they order the ship to go. It's really funny. It's good stuff.
For posterity's sake, and for the audience in case you care about such things, I recently started season 2 of Discovery.
Right.
So I'm like,
That's why I was very careful to not even give you a pronoun, Keith.
Yeah. Thank you.
We had to see the battle bridge again. I was so excited to see the battle bridge.
It took me a second. I'm like, wait a minute. Did I miss? So I backed it up. I'm like, did I miss something? And I was like, oh yeah. Okay. Well, when they said saucer separation, I was skeptical at first. At first, I just wrote saucer separation. Then when it actually happened, I put an exclamation point. It's happening. It's happening.
I mean, they didn't show it, of course.
Yeah.
Because budget. Right. But we did get the cool shot of the shuttle taking off from the saucer section and driving past the hull section.
Yeah.
You can see out the window.
That part confused me because my impression from TOS Enterprise was that one was going out of the other part of the ship, not the saucer.
So there's the main shuttle bay in the engineering section, but the Enterprise D is big enough. It has multiple shuttle bays.
All right. That was one of my later questions. Cool. Perfect. I have many more shuttle comments.
Good question, though. I like the way you were thinking that.
Yeah.
I like it. In the shuttle, they had a ceiling transporter. The data reaches up and hits the buttons.
Yes.
And my first thought, and maybe Steven's with me on this, what do short people do?
I didn't even think that. I was just like, wait a minute, there's a transporter in this shuttle? This is a deluxe shuttle.
Well, the short people turn off the anti-grav or the gravity. So they
that
just
would make it hard to. No, I mean, I just turned to my wife and I'm like, before I married you, I may not have noticed, but now it's my first thought.
Right.
Morgan couldn't reach that.
There's a shuttle stepladder in there.
Yep.
But she said the same thing. And I said, but then the ladder beams with you. That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, that's true.
Unless you try to kick it out of the beam real quick.
So
it's bad design.
The shuttle transporter could transport without somebody operating the board per se, right?
Yeah, all the shuttle transporters are programmed. This is well established in books and TV that they can basically set a recall. They can just like tap their comm badge and have them recalled to it.
Man, that's
an improvement, right?
Yeah,
over the regular.
Oh, over the regular transporter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. My guess is the shuttlecraft transporter is a lot more limited in how far it can go.
That makes sense.
And how many people it can beam. It's got limited features, but it's got some nice features.
And instead of eliminating medical issues, it gives you cancer. So
right.
It's a trade-off.
But like a curable cancer, not a bad cancer. Like one of the lesser cancers. It's testicular cancer, not a big deal.
It's a well-known issue. They have a fix in place for it.
Right.
So you're saying there is like an actual physical, almost like the equivalent of like a transporter pad in the shuttle.
It's basically enough to beam two people. Sometimes I think we've seen the pad, or maybe we haven't seen it yet, but we will see the 2-person pad.
Well, and then all three of them beamed, right? Later back to the Enterprise.
When they grab Picard, all three of them beamed. But I think we've established with the transporter pad that even though there are 6 circles and 6 people stand in them, you can beam beyond those 6 circles.
It's a convenient, like a writing convenience thing that reminds me of just like when you have superhero powers that teleport, got, mutants and like Nightcrawler and so forth. It's like they can decide somehow, I'm going to take this thing that I'm touching, but not this other thing that I'm touching.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's like, again, some of the newer series, which I'm not going to start getting into too much, but the idea that people can kind of jump into the transporter beam and suddenly go with them.
Oh, that was from the movie. Kirk's movie did that. Star Trek 4.
Just, that doesn't, I don't know.
That's no more ridiculous than the guy who escaped the transporter beam in TNG.
I've always said for years that when we get a transporter beam, that is going to change everything. I mean, that's going to be the next real jump.
Yeah.
It's like the monolith in 2001. That'll really be our next big jump.
I guess by this conversation, though, that means you can program the shuttle transporter to just leave the stepladder behind. Is what I think the whole point of this was.
Yes. Okay. So they just leave the shuttle, right?
Yeah.
They don't go back and get it.
They beam back into the shuttle, and then when the shuttle's fleeing, the Borg fire on the shuttle, and they beam them out before the shuttle's destroyed.
Oh, okay.
Shuttle gets blown up.
Okay, that's right.
The Worf versus Picard fight was entertaining, and I like that Picard held his own against Worf, like a real demonstration of what the Borg implants have done to him. But I thought the abduction seemed way too easy and unlikely that they found the exact point in that huge Borg cube. And their phasers worked longer than they ever have in an encounter with Borg.
I also thought it's weird to me. I think the Borg are creepier when they get shot and they fall and die than when they're living. Like, whatever the direction was for them to die and fall, I'm like, it just creeps me out. It just, for whatever reason, it makes them seem even more otherworldly to me.
I will say I would have more of a problem with Picard's abduction if they did it just to get him back. I think part of what made it work for me and let me suspend the disbelief is Riker had a reason of rescuing him, and it wasn't to rescue him. I mean, rescuing him was the side effect.
Right.
But they had plans.
So about the phaser thing, they were mentioning something at some point in the episode about reprogramming some signal to randomly change the signal every use. Was that the phaser thing, or is
the
it
ship's
else?
phasers were programmed for that?
Okay, so but not necessarily the handheld ones.
Correct. And as we see at every other encounter of the Borg, the handheld ones, whenever they do them, generally only work for a few shots.
So Earth is in sector 0001.
001, yes.
We're number 1.
Yeah.
We're number 1.
By design.
We were one of the founders of the Federation, and clearly Starfleet is very human-centric.
Yeah, it makes sense.
They talk a lot about that in the first couple Titan books I'm reading, because Titan, when Riker becomes captain of the Titan, he has a mission to make it the most diverse crew ever. And Deanna talks about how, people just tend to segment themselves, and humans have really like segmented themselves into mostly human starships. And now on the Titan, they have all these different aliens, many of them non-humanoid. There's a Horda. There's like all kinds of different creatures. And that's like, they make a point of talking about it and dealing with it. And this book came out about 10 years ago. So it was probably a really good social message then, even more so today.
Wait a minute. Was the Horda, is that the pain alien?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are in the novels a couple of Hordas in Starfleet by the next gen time. Locutus. Okay, here's my fashion.
I got something here too, but you go first.
Well, besides the 4 pips, of course.
Sure.
Riker's. Picard's hairy chest and all that. That was a look.
I kind of want that Picard/Borg swimsuit. I'd wear that to the pool, man. I liked it.
Locutus says to Data, "You will be obsolete in the new order," basically, because he's just a machine. That stood out to me because I think it's clear in this scene that they underestimate Data. The Data comes up with, I mean, it's instrumental. Picard's instrumental as well in defeating. And the next time we really have a solid next gen fighting the Borg adventure in the films, the Borg come for Data. So I think they understand their mistake here when they're like, "You're obsolete. We don't care about you." Then he helps defeat them, and the next time they come for him.
I thought he just said that to get at him. And what I wrote right away, I think it was this was the line or somewhere in there. And we might have to bleep this, but Locutus is a dick.
Yeah, he is.
He's just terrible.
Right. So I have to mention, for again posterity and to keep us from getting too many fan letters, the proper pronunciation is locutus, like locution. That's the whole. Like he's. I think he's like the. Locutus.
Locutus.
So locutus. So it's like, he's like the mouthpiece of the Borg.
I never got that before.
Yes. So now you fans don't have to write in. Well, I never figured out the mouthpiece thing until like this rewatch, and I was like, wait a minute, that's what they're doing. It's like, yeah, I think that was the whole purpose he was serving. That's one of the reasons why he was able to say number one and so forth. He was supposed to be like their. Yeah. Anyway,
we'll explore more down the road what exactly they were doing with Picard here, but yes,
he said that they were going to raise their quality of life. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Isn't he just going to kill? Aren't they just going to kill them?
No, they're going to make them Borg.
Right.
They're going to assimilate them.
Okay.
He's their politician. He's their liaison and the ambassador. Hey guys, don't worry about it. We're just gonna help you. We're just gonna give you more technology and stuff.
He might not be wrong.
Yeah, maybe.
I think over this last year, that's one of the things we've learned, isn't it? Anyway.
There's a great shot of the Borg cube passing by Saturn. And then there's another great shot of the Enterprise D passing by Saturn. And then I'm thinking, why are they both flying right next to Saturn when you've got the whole solar system to fly through?
Well, I mean, it looks prettier.
Yeah.
You know, the rings provide cover or something. I don't know.
That was definitely one of those things for the television show and not thought out logically.
Did you see that? Saturn? They went by Saturn.
Yeah.
I think they want to like hammer home. They're almost to Earth. They're coming to Earth.
Yeah.
Because then the next conversation,
Mars could be anything.
Next conversation, like they're passing Jupiter. They're getting closer. And then Matt Damon's waving to them from Mars.
Because by then they'd be putting the brakes on if they were going warp 6 or whatever.
I think you don't use generally Trek. They say you don't use warp within the solar system.
Yeah.
So they're just going through impulse power through the solar system. That's why they slowed down so much.
Makes sense.
I never really thought about how fast impulse power is. I mean,
faster than anything we have today.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Suppose that would follow.
It's not as fast as light speed because warp 1 is the speed of light. But still pretty fast. I really enjoyed that. Was O'Brien saying to Data, what point should I shut things down? And he's like, I don't know. Never done this before. It was delivered so well. And I liked the dream team of Data, Troy, Crusher, O'Brien, and a useless security guard that you know is going to get tossed aside.
Mm-hmm.
But I just was really enjoying that O'Brien was included in that.
No,
and Troy and Crusher and Data, they made sense who they picked.
Before we move past that, that was a really good point. The idea of that's one of those tropes that you see done so often you really think about it. The idea of, the person going under is always saying, don't bring me out for anything, or don't bring me out unless this, or somebody's saying, oh, if their vitals get past this thing, they have to do this, or they ignore it. No, let them go. So this is like, who knows?
Yeah, and I'll say and we'll see as we progress with the Borgs, but one of the things that's always tough, whether it's like a Smallville or whatever, is getting a good enough villain that they're powerful enough to put fear in you, but they're not so powerful that you're like, all right, whatever. They're so powerful that why are we bothering? Why is this a story? And I thought the idea that they were able to outwit them, so to speak, with a little bit of luck or whatever, I thought that it was still engaging enough for me that it wasn't. I mean, the original series, we did it too many times where Kirk outwitted a computer or whatever, giving it riddles or whatever. But I thought the solution here was pretty good. And yeah.
Well, the other piece of that you have this supercomputer, you outsmart it once, that never comes back. The Borg regroup and they come back.
Right.
They learn from every encounter.
Right.
They're tougher each time.
Well, I wrote asleep. They're just going to reboot, which is essentially what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Well, if you set a timer, for
right
10 Earth years or something. Steven made me think of Transformers. One of the things I always come back to. I'm talking about like the 80s cartoon and similar things like that. G.I. Joe. You get like a new villain come in, and they always are so overpowered, and it does seem like, oh my God, what can they how are they going to do it? And they figure something out. And so then every time they come back in later episodes, it's just whatever. Okay, they're just kind of like the same level as everybody else, and it's just fine. Independence Day, the thing that people always get on the movie about. This is one of the things they make fun of. The Jeff Goldblum's character, made that virus on a Macintosh something or other, and just kind of uploaded it. And there's something about the way that they stumbled into this solution that didn't feel quite like that. So, to Steven's point about it not seeming too easy, but something that could have possibly happened.
And Picard, who had the knowledge of the Borg, was the one that gave them the answer.
Yeah.
They say losing a Borg like Picard is like cutting off an arm. I'm like, but there's billions of Borg. How is that as bad as cutting off an arm? I would think that would be as bad as like losing a small piece of skin or something.
It's like if a centipede lost a leg. They probably do all the time.
Right. Only the centipede's got like 50,000 more legs than the normal centipede has. It did. I guess Picard is important to the Borg, and I think the way the Borg are presented at this point is that it's just a hive mind. There's no leader. We'll find out later that's not the case, and we'll get more insight into their structure. But Picard is important to them, and I get that losing him would have an effect. It just felt like it shouldn't have as much of an effect as they tried to play it as having.
Well, just devil's advocate, I would say that it has more to do with maybe the analogy is poor because they're trying to put it in terms that a human audience can comprehend. It wouldn't necessarily be an arm to them. It would be something else that would be of equal balance or importance, or there's something about the way that the redundancy works where that would make an effect. Or probably later on, as we saw, that the solution was that there was so much redundancy that one item would affect everything else in an equal fashion. So it's like, maybe we need losing a fingertip to us or some other, or making a sacrifice of something that we would notice. So
I agree. It would be something to notice, and I think it confused and surprised the Borg, and that's what slowed him down enough to catch up to him.
I also think, for me right now, I still don't know. The Borg are so mysterious to me and interesting, which I think is great that they gave us a little bit more here. And so I'm still not sure what these people are or what they're up to. I know what they're up to. They're terrible, terrible, whatever they are. But
who are these people?
Who exactly?
From here on out, next gen, we get some smaller, more personal Borg stories a couple of times. It's not till the movies, I think, that we get a full-on war with them again, and that's the best next gen movie is their Borg movie. in my opinion.
Really?
And then, that's a great movie.
That's the one I've seen least often, and that's one that would show least often for some reason. Like
that is frequently most people's favorite next gen film.
Huh?
It's there.
I think I've seen like maybe once or twice, and I was similarly fascinated because of that. Because like in the HBOs and so forth, it seems like they would only ever show Insurrection. Yeah, it's like maybe you get a Generations every now and then.
Insurrection's not that great. But Voyager also spends like half of the series with the Borg, so we'll get lots of Borg.
That's one of the reasons why I think my favorites. So for now,
Data, when he's in that cool science lab where he built his daughter, and we're going to see that cool science lab again. I love that lab. He's pressing a lot of buttons on the panel, but I realized at one point there's no screen on that panel. So how does he know what effect the buttons are having when he's pressing them?
Huh.
I mean, maybe Data. He does because he's an android, but if anybody else uses that lab,
personalized panels.
To me. I enjoyed just how close they came to ramming the Borg cube. Riker even said N as engage. He even got that first syllable out before they said stop.
Yeah.
Like that was intense.
Make it no.
I knew, and I think anybody watching the show knew they weren't really going to ram them and die, but I felt in that moment the hopelessness of the situation and how prepared everybody was to sacrifice themselves, and the hope that if they took their ship to warp through the Borg cube, which is what they were going to do, which is super dangerous and awful, I think that would have crippled the ship enough to save Earth. I really do, because maybe one ship can't fire at a Borg cube enough to save Earth, and even if you just ram them normally, it's not going to destroy the cube. But you go to warp through them, something the size of the Galaxy class, I think that would have done some serious damage.
How does warp work in that way, though? I mean, scientifically, just trying to think of. I thought the whole idea of this is you're sort of like outside of the normal space.
No, that's Star Wars, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel.
I thought every warp technology is like you enter sort of like another dimension, like a tunnel that you're going.
No, well, I think they do talk about subspace.
Subspace, yes,
you're right. They talk about subspace, but subspace isn't completely out of regular space. It's like layered on regular space or something. You can still hit things at warp.
So it'd probably be like the Holdo maneuver in Last Jedi, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking of immediately when he said that. But I mean, I feel like there's probably some like a grace period or delay as you're accelerating to that point. But I swear, like every time I've heard of like that type of faster than light speed travel is because how could you plot a course to anything from anywhere without hitting something unexpected? You can't possibly know everything's going to be in that path.
Sensors. They have really good sensors.
They just kind of like dodge this.
Yeah. I assume. I can. I'll talk about Wesley when we get to our Wesley rankings in that scene. Riker. Yeah. Where was? Okay, so the shot of the cube exploding when the Borg were destroyed. Where was Earth? It was right next to Earth, and then when we see the cube explode, no Earth.
Or Earth did took evasive maneuvers.
Or unless that was a video taken from Earth with a big telescope.
From the one view, it looked really close to Earth, but it was really, really a lot further away than you thought.
It was like in that right-hand rear view mirror. It was just kind of like a distorted view of.
It was a matter of perspective.
They talk about needing 5 or 6 weeks of repairs, which seemed legit and understandable. And I'm glad that they had that in there. I liked the scene in Picard's office when Picard's back at work with just the things on his head. And he and Riker both say come, and Riker's still acting like the captain.
Yeah.
It's fun. But again, that scene hammered home to me that Riker should now go captain his own ship.
Yeah.
It really doesn't make a lot of sense to me why he stays right now, unless he thinks that Picard is not as fine as he appears to be, which we know he's not, and he thinks Picard needs him. That's the only explanation I can come up with. But I don't think there's ever anything that's said or hinted.
Yeah.
Well, see, that goes back to the effect I was talking about before with the fake out effect. When you do too good a job of being convincing, this has to happen. This is a natural course of action now. And you back down from that. And so it's like, it doesn't feel like a natural decision for Riker to make after all that happened. Like that should have convinced him to move on. Like he was ready to do it. But for the purpose of the series, we didn't want him to go, obviously. But
I was sad to say goodbye to Shelby. It was a really nice goodbye scene between Riker and Shelby, but I wish they'd found room for her in the cast to stick around. Elizabeth Dennehy did a wonderful job as Shelby.
Yeah, I liked her a lot, and I forgot I didn't really look her up in real life. No, I didn't look her up on the internet. I forgot she's the daughter of Brian Dennehy.
Yes.
Great actor.
Wow.
Rest in peace. And this is the part that was really bad. I forgot she was on a Seinfeld. She was in the episode The Handicap Spot. I don't know if you guys remember the Drake. Love the Drake. And later, hate the Drake. She was the Drake's fiance, the Drakette. So
she's best known for Hancock, Red Dragon, Gattaca. She's been in lots of stuff.
Yeah. I really liked her.
Yeah, we didn't get as much of Admiral J.P. Hansen this episode, George Murdoch.
No.
Just a little bit. I kind of felt
he's
like
not
maybe
coming back later, right?
He did. I think he died at Wolf 359.
Yeah, he did.
Okay. He was in Star Trek 5. Did we talk about that with part 1?
Yes.
He was God. He was God in Star Trek 5. Yeah. What does God need with a starship? Well, he needs it to fight the Borg and then die. Essentially. This is the 1-2 punch of Picard. When they ask him what he remembers before the last scene, and he tells them he remembers everything. And then when he's left alone in his office at the end, and the look of horror that comes over his face when he has to be alone with his thoughts and confront it is so good.
Yeah, I really like that. And it reminded me of, I can't remember which of the Bourne movies. That was the line in it was, I remember everything. Because that was the same thing where he'd done all these terrible things because he'd been programmed, literally. Riker says, my career plans are my business. But as we've discussed, and it's been discussed on other episodes, it's not just his business. It's Starfleet. It's everyone's business. It isn't just his business. You know, you're not working at Space McDonald's. You're on the top ship in the fleet, buddy.
It does seem like Starfleet gives officers a large amount of latitude in accepting assignments, people picking assignments, deciding what to do with their careers, more so than any corporate culture would today, and certainly more than the military does today.
I was about to say.
Yeah, and maybe we discussed this back then, but in the Star Trek: The Motion Picture, definitely in the novelization, the idea is that they didn't give Kirk a choice.
Right.
It was like, you got to be an admiral, and
that's where the early days of Starfleet. Starfleet learned better.
So maybe they figured out, and as Spock said, you're best as a captain. So if people are best at that, let's leave them there and let's let Commodores be Commodores.
Yes.
Or admirals. So
this episode was directed by sorry. This episode was directed by Cliff Bull, who also directed the first part. And it was written by Michael Piller, who also wrote the first part and was the showrunner at the time on Next Gen. So they definitely use their best people. I did have one more note about Picard's look of horror in that at the end and this goes into next week's episode, but
it was about the tea.
No.
It's like, this is not hot enough.
Earl Grey, tepid. He's changed. No, but the network firmly in the studio wanted Next Gen to get back to fun adventures next week. And the writers had to really fight to be like, no, this has to have some lasting effect.
Nice.
It was something that was not easily won. And that's what Family is. The episode we're going to get next is they did eventually agree. Network and studio didn't want that because syndication, they wanted to run them in whatever order they wanted and not have to worry about what happened. But I'm so glad that Picard's look of horror here wasn't the end of it. I'm so glad there's follow-up, not just in Family, but in future episodes and even films of what happened at this time. I mean, a big part of Star Trek First Contact, the film, when we get to it, are the events of Best of Both Worlds and the lasting effects it's had on him. So I love that there's that through line in this character, that he is permanently changed by it. And they actually lean into it a little bit, as much as they could in that day.
Yeah, and we talked about this definitely with TOS, where you would have a great, or maybe not a great episode, but you'd have something that should have a big impact, and then it's never discussed again, especially
like Uhura.
season 3.
losing all of her memory.
Yeah, and my go-to is always Requiem from Methuselah, where Spock removes all his memories after Kirk's.
I was about to say the forget.
Yeah, and then we never get back to it, which I guess means it worked. Everyone forgot.
Didn't in the movie? Is that what we decided?
In the movie,
at one
it's
point?
remember. In Rathacon, it's remember. In Methuselah, it's forget.
Right.
Which again,
but I mean, wouldn't that be like the follow-up that they just never got around?
I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess in a way that is it just took 14 years, 13 years, but still. But yeah.
We don't see off screen that he does that at the end of every episode to everybody in the ship. Just goes around
just in case.
To their beds. Forget.
That's how Spock sexually assaulted Janice Randall.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but we got there.
No.
Oh God, that would be so awful. Talk about changing the character of Spock. Yep. My alternate episode, and I think this is the obvious one you got to go to. What if they had killed Picard here and let Riker become the captain?
Oh, wow.
I'm not saying I want that because I love Patrick Stewart and there's a lot more of good stuff for him to do. But also, that would have been very interesting for them to have made it Riker's show. And I think Frakes could have handled it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And now maybe that in this environment, these days in the golden age of television, maybe that happens.
Well, I mean, Discovery's had 3 seasons and 3 captains. So,
yeah. My alternate episode is the exact way at the opposite end of the spectrum. So when they go to the Borg ship, it becomes a madcap comedy. I thought of, and I don't know if you guys have seen Sleeper with Woody Allen. I know we canceled him, but he pretends he's like one of the robots for about 20 minutes of the movie. And it's very funny. It's slapstick madcap comedy. So that's what I envisioned was them overtaking some of the Borg and then trying to pretend to be Borg for a long time and how that works out. Going back to Who Watches the Watchers with Riker, another screwball comedy I want to see. So that was my alternate episode.
It's like I think Jimmy and I reversed roles this episode, where it's like you were the one winning me over as far as the quality. Just I don't know how I felt about this. Just listening to you talk about it though, I was like, oh yeah, I really I feel better about having watched it.
Not a perfect episode by any means, but I thought Rescue Picard was too easy. I thought, that last minute save was maybe a little cliche, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. Do you still feel like, as we all seem to agree at the beginning, that part 2 was inferior to part 1?
I mean, it kind of necessarily had to be because it was about rebuilding and giving answers for things that seemed so much more dire, I guess, in the previous episode. That's what made the other one stand out a little bit more, is because they were able to destroy more than give easy, neat things.
I'm trying to decide how I feel about Menagerie. If I think the same of that.
I don't recall which part I liked better of the Menagerie.
That one
we treated it as one.
I think part 2 of that one has this one started with some emotional resonance and it finished with it, like we said, that last shot. But I guess that one's a happier ending, part 2. Yeah, I don't know. Act 1 of that one is more the action, and then the rest is kind of thinking, talking stuff. So that's for another time. Or go back and listen to that episode.
Annoyance. Scale of 1 to 10, Wesley. What do you got?
I gave him a 1.5. I wrote Riker look. There's some look he gives to Riker where I was like, that's a total cheeseball. And I gave him an extra 0.5 for that. So 1.5.
1.5, okay.
We can do halves, right? Did we decide?
I guess
we can do it.
I have to use the calculator, but yes.
Don't you anyway? I mean,
no, I don't usually use the calculator.
You know what?
Oh.
Make it a 2. Make it a 2.
Make it a 2? Okay.
Yeah.
I assumed you had like I assumed you had like the formula in the spreadsheet that just did that.
No, I only put our total average score, and I do that in my head.
Right.
But we start adding decimals. I don't know if I'll be able to do it in my head.
It's a 2. Make it a 2. We'll make it easy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm giving him a 4.
All right.
I want to forgive him and be understanding that he hesitates to commit suicide by ramming the Enterprise. But at the same time, he's a full ensign now who served the crew for a couple of years. And he should not be questioning Riker's orders in those moments.
That might be where he gave the cheeseball look.
Right.
Gave him a point where he's like,
I'm giving him a 4. Sure? I think he went too far there. I don't think he was becoming of a Starfleet officer.
I wanted to hear both points of view for that one. Again, I don't feel like I was engaged enough. I don't know. Under the circumstances, he was acting as the audience, I think, in that case. But for me, it was more the inflection or something, I guess, when something, the verbal hesitation. So make it 2.
You wanted 2 as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 8 divided by 3. That's a 2.7.
See, that's that's witchcraft right there. I can't concentrate like that anymore.
Who was your annoyance this week?
When we get to the Orville, she'll be right.
She'll be all ready for the Orville.
Yeah. Mine was
that hadn't occurred to me.
Locutus?
Yes. Locutus.
Okay.
Locutus, yeah. Specifically for Locutus or Locutus?
It's just Locutus.
Locutus.
Yes.
I always say Locutus.
Locutus the Beautus.
What do I say? I don't even remember what I say anymore.
He's mine. He's a jerk. So, yeah.
You were pronouncing with 2 O's instead of a U before.
Locutus?
Oh.
Yes.
Locutus. I don't know.
Locutus.
Keith, who's your annoyance?
Huh. It's all pretty even, wasn't it? I mean, Locutus is the natural thing to choose under the circumstances.
Okay.
I didn't really feel like anybody was like especially annoying.
I mean, I agree that nobody was especially annoying, which is why I'm going with the boy, Wesley, because he was the only one that annoyed me even for that one little moment.
Yeah, 4's pretty strong for us.
We've stopped calling him the boy, and I kind of missed that. I mean, the show has stopped calling him the boy. The other characters always called him the boy.
That makes me think of Lost Space.
Actually, I will also go with Wesley. I wasn't sure we could do that. So you can also choose him for the.
Oh yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah.
Okay, I will make the adjustment to the spreadsheet.
Make it
Crush of Star Trek. Everybody going with Locutus?
Sticking with Shelby, I guess starting with Shelby, I guess.
Starting with Shelby.
Yeah. So now that especially that I saw the Seinfeld thing, will I have a 4th straight season of a Seinfeld guest star being my crush of the year? We'll see. But for week 1, it's her.
I'm also going with Shelby, who was my crush for part 1 as well. She was not Keith's crush for part 1.
Huh.
Keith, you could choose Locutus because I don't think he's a main character.
That's true.
Shelby seems like a good default at the moment.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to force you to take Shelby if you're not crushing on her. Ranking the episode, worst of the season so far.
Yep. I put it at the bottom.
I was going to have us rank it compared to part 1, but we already did that. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it would rank. I'm just thinking of like if this was not the beginning of the season, I still think it would probably rank towards the top. Yeah, that's true. We've got plenty of time to find out where we want to rank it.
I missed this. How is this the best of both worlds?
Machine and man.
Yeah.
The Borg themselves are supposed to be the best of both worlds.
Right.
Okay.
It was the best of both worlds. It was the worst of both worlds.
And now we're back to Wrath of Khan. Yes.
Always. It all comes back to Wrath of Khan. Always.
Did they quote that in Wrath of Khan?
Yes.
Yeah.
The best of times, the worst of times at the beginning. Or in other words, your birthday.
Yeah.
When Spock gives Kirk
it's a far better resting place I go to.
Like Spock gives him the book, right? McCoy gives him the glasses.
Far better place than I've ever been.
Far better. Yeah.
Something my friend was trying to tell me on my birthday.
I love that movie. I haven't
seen the movie that much though. But I probably have some of that wrong.
I love that the second movie is all about how old they are, and the 6th movie that we're going to get is all about, oh no, now we're actually old because we spent the last couple movies being young after we were old. Next week, family. And the hypnosis starts after defeating the Borg. So yeah, it ties in. The crew of the Enterprise experiences shore leave in various ways. Captain Picard's return to his family vineyard in France has some extraordinary repercussions. I would argue that description's a little inaccurate because Picard's the only one of them that experiences shore leave.
that we see. Yeah, I mean, it's,
everybody else stays on the ship.
Yeah.
It's
I would rather say the crew reconnects with their family in various ways. That was more accurate.
I thought it might be figuratively. They talk about family, which I guess they do actually.
Yeah,
figuratively and literally. We're getting ahead of ourselves. That's next week.
I'm excited for family. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think it's a really good episode.
Yeah, my family.
Yeah. And until then, live long.
And even though resistance is hopeless, prosper.
Keith has nothing.
No, I do not. I was too busy thinking, Steven must like Sean at least, right? But who knows?
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?